back to another video. So today's video I have for you guys is a Shinobu wig tutorial. It's taken me quite some time to put this together just because I ended up moving in between this whole tutorial. So it took me quite a while to find the motivation and the time to put this together. So I'm posting this out for Katsu. I hope this helps some of you. I know some of you have messaged me asking me when this is going to be up, and I'm so sorry for the long wait, but I finally have it. Yeah, I'm going to keep this short and simple. I'm going to explain everything in great detail and show you guys how I style my Shinobu wig to not have the bun in the back, and also how to do the ombre and the bangs and everything to look more accurate to what you see on screen. I'm editing this right now, and I totally forgot to mention where I got my wig. I got it from Cosplay. I actually have a discount code you can use on this wig if you would like to get it for yourself, and I'll have all that listed down below. But yeah, I totally forgot to mention that. I'm going to show you guys a little preview of the wig before we start the video. So here she is. She is beauty, she is grace. I like how this one turned out. It's a little different than how I did the first time, but I think this one looks a little better and the color is a little more accurate. I used a different color hairspray for this one, a different purple. But I do think the more of an indigo purple matches better to what you see on screen. So, but you can use any colored hairspray. I'll explain a little bit more about it later in the tutorial. But yeah, as you can see, there is no bun here. It is straight flat. I'll go ahead and take off the clip to show you guys what's going on underneath. I keep some of the excess hair on because I like to have a little hairline down here. But it's completely flat. There's some bobby pins for structure, but you can take them out if you want. I like to keep them in just because I'm going to be traveling with this wig and I want to make sure everything stays in place while it's in my luggage. A little nervous about that, but anyways, point being, there is no bun, and as you can see, the bangs are a lot like fluffier and the color matches a lot more, so hopefully this helps some of you guys who have been asking questions. Other than that, let's go ahead and get into the tutorial. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and show you guys a close-up of the wig. So as you can see here, it comes with a built-in hairline and it goes all around the bottom too, so we don't have to go in and glue in a hairline later. So that will save you a lot of time and it makes it a lot easier, especially if you're more of a beginner at styling wigs. But yeah, as you can see here, there is like a bun, and we're going to go ahead and get rid of that in this video, so don't worry about it. And the gradient in the bangs is also not great, but don't worry, I'll show you how to fix that as well later on in the video. So we're going to go ahead and get started into all the things that we need. The first thing you need is a teasing comb. I have two different ones. And then I also use the Got to Be Glued hairspray. And Mod Podge, I use the purple one because it dries harder. And then a paintbrush or a sponge. And also some scissors, of course, because we're going to cut a lot of hair off. So first things first, we're going to go ahead and pin down the wig as best as possible to your styrofoam head or whatever you put your wigs on. I recommend getting a styrofoam head because it's going to make it a lot easier to keep that shape. And then we're going to take out the bun and work with all the hair that we have. First, I'm going to start by parting off the upper half of the hair. This is the top hairline that meets with the bangs, and I'm going to go ahead and section that off because we're going to need that later. But yeah, right now I'm just showing you all the parts that I section off. Basically what I'm doing is making a thin ring of hair that we're going to glue down. Starting from about the ears and going all the way to the top of the head around. So we have a thin layer to glue down later. Just leave enough room so that the wig's going to be opaque. I really only use like less than an inch of hair around this part because you really don't need that much because it's going to be thick anyways. But now I'm just going to start carving out the majority of the wig. Save your scraps that you get because we're going to use those later for the bangs, and I'll show you that later in the video, don't worry. But cut as close to the hairline as you can, or the little wefts that are sewn in, so it will lay down as flat as possible. And that's all that I'm doing here. I just cut out the center. Make sure to leave hair around the edges of the wig so we don't have any weird gapping when we go back to tie it up and glue it up later. So basically just shave off as much as possible. Be careful not to cut the wefts because that will ruin the integrity of the wig, but we still have a ton of hair and I'll probably cut more off later. But now we're going to start gluing down our first layer on top. I always start with the top section and we're just going to lay it down as flat as possible, and then take your Mod Podge and a paintbrush and just start layering on the Mod Podge and cover the majority of the top half just so it kind of creates like the head shape. And make sure you're saturating the hair as much as possible with the Mod Podge, so don't be shy to use too much because it'll dry down clear anyways, it doesn't matter. I use a hairdryer in between these shots to make it dry faster. but you can just like let it sit and dry overnight. But let's be honest, I am con crunching for Katsu while filming this, so I don't have time to let it sit and dry overnight, so I'm using a hairdryer to let it dry in between. And then I'm just making sure it's all smoothed down, and I take my finger or the end of the comb and I just go back and like flatten it out and make sure that the whole hair is saturated, and then you just go back with your finger and kind of rub it in. And then I also clip it at this point too, just to kind of gather the hair so it keeps the shape of the head, if that makes sense. You'll see in just a second. I'll just keep it pinned so when it's drying it keeps that shape that I want. And I just use little roller set pins. You can use any hair clips, you can even use bobby pins. So yeah, and now I'm going to go ahead and take down the top half that we just sectioned off and take another thin section from that. You don't want to use all the hair. I work in layers of 3 for this wig. So I'm taking the second layer of the top hairline that meets the bangs, and I'm going to do the exact same thing that I just did beforehand. Then I'm also going to pin it and let it dry. So that's all that's happening now, nothing too intense yet. But you're basically just copying what you just did, and then we're going to pin it again and let it set and dry. Again, just make sure you're saturating the majority of the hair as much as possible and smoothing out with your finger afterwards so the hair doesn't dry in weird bumps. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to the side sections. So I go ahead and part off a thin section from the side of the hair, kind of by the ear, and then I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to pull it back, a thin section of it, and then I'm going to pin it and do the same Mod Podge I just did to the top half of the wig. There's going to be a lot of just Mod Podging and pulling back layers of hair in this video, so I'm sorry if this gets a little repetitive, but that's essentially all I do for the back of the wig. If you plan on letting this air dry, I definitely recommend pinning it in place, but if you're using a hair dryer like I will be later on in the video, you can just kind of hold it with your hands and dry it like that. But yeah, if you're going to leave it, I definitely recommend pinning it so it keeps its shape. Then more of the same parting and Mod Podge. I work starting from the top of the wig and then I kind of go around the wig and I save a layer at the top for last. But this way everything kind of pulls up naturally, like it's supposed to be in a ponytail or a bun, but there's no bun there. So yeah, if that makes a little more sense, it will look really cool in pictures. It looks like your hair is pulled up, so that's why I do it the way that I do it. It adds a nice little detail to the cosplay and it looks very realistic. I use my hair dryer on a medium heat, and then I also use the cooling effect on the hair dryer. But now I'm going ahead and I'm going to cut off more of the hair. I ended up cutting off not enough. So you can kind of just work your way around the wig and cut off what you need to and then pin down and glue what's left. I'm trying to make this as simple as possible, especially if you are a beginner at wig styling. It can get really tricky, and honestly, I still consider myself a beginner. So these are kind of my little hacks to get around doing the really hard wigs. Gluing in hairlines is a lot more intense than this one. You can also use the E3000 glue. They make it in a clear and a black. The black would be perfect for this wig, and I actually used the clear one on my first wig to add more wefts in. But I find the Mod Podge is a lot easier to work with, especially if you are a beginner at this. It makes it a lot simpler and it's more just painting rather than having to directly place the hair exactly where you want. But this video is going to be a lot of repeating the same process. It will start to get a little more interesting, I promise, as soon as we get later on. But I'm going to go ahead and start the first layer of the bottom. And for the first layer, I'm going to go ahead and Mod Podge it like normal. But for the second layer, I'm going to do something a little different. I'll show you in just a second. This is where it gets a little tricky. I'm cutting off the shorter wefts so they don't stick out of the wig, and it just makes it a lot easier to work with. You just need a good solid band of hair and make sure it's going to fit all the way up around the wig. And for this bottom half, I went ahead and just took some Got To Be Glued hairspray and I saturated it quite a bit and smoothed it down with my fingers, and then also used my hair dryer to harden down like the Mod Podge does and make sure it stays in place. Don't worry about the underneath part looking too ugly because it's going to be covered by the side wefts that we're doing right now and then also by the top, so you will barely even see the underneath part. It's just to make sure it's stable and stays into the shape that you want it to. But as you can see, I'm just using my hands to hold down the hair in the exact place where I want it to. especially for these pieces, just to make sure they're wrapped tight enough around the head. Then I'm going to go ahead and take my scissors and cut off the extra hair that we have. You can save it if you want to glue in more wefts around the bangs to make them thicker. I didn't this time around, but that's totally optional. Then I took the Mod Podge once again and I Mod Podged the little pieces that were sticking up just to make sure they laid flat, so the top half lays flat. And now we're going to take that top half down. This is the last layer you'll have to Mod Podge. Thank God this takes so long. But yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and Mod Podge this down. I'm once again holding it with my hands so it has the exact shape that I want it to. Just be sure that the whole top section is saturated so there's no shifting or moving, especially if this is a wig that you're going to be traveling with quite a bit. It just makes sure that it's nice and solid. It will literally feel like a helmet. You can like knock on it and it will be solid. But after that, we're going to go ahead and move on to the bangs. So I started by taking small sections of the top half of the bangs and just teasing them. It will look like a matted nest. Don't tease it too hard so where you can't brush it out, but just enough so that it keeps it fluffy. And basically I'm just going to be teasing both sides of the bangs like this and then brushing them out and then teasing them again until I have the shape that I want. I recommend getting a teasing comb for this part. It will make it a lot easier. The one I have is just from Walmart. You can get it for a few dollars and it really speeds up the process a lot and works a lot better than a regular comb. Then we're going to move on to the bottom half of the bangs after those are done. And make sure you hairspray after you do this so they stay in place. But I'm just going to do the same method as I did in the top half just to make them nice and fluffy. And of course, like I said earlier, hairspraying over them to make sure that they keep their shape. Then I'm going to go ahead and cut the top half of the bangs so they're both even, but also a little shorter because her top half of her bangs fall right by her eyes. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just thinning out and making sure each bang is in their right place. And then the side bangs reach about to the bottom of her chin. So that's what I did there. I just trimmed those. Super simple, super easy. But now I'm going to go ahead and curl the bangs in little sections to give them the shape that she has. I just use my straightening iron to curl. You can use a curling iron. It does the same thing. It doesn't matter either way. As long as they have some texture in there, it'll be fine. But this will help them look a lot fluffier too. And I curl in opposite directions on each side. So one strand will be curled towards the face and one will be away from the face, just alternating so that the bangs have more volume. Then I'm going to go ahead and brush out the curls so they're nice and fluffy and look super pretty. And yeah, that's basically all I did for the bangs. It's not too intense, and if you're a beginner, it's pretty easy. But now we're going to go ahead and move on to how I do the ombre. I'm using the Colorista by L'Oreal in their purple shade. And I'm taking a piece of paper so it doesn't get all messy, and I'm just gonna kind of spray these until they have the opacity that I want. But I just got this hairspray at Walmart. I think it's about $8, so it's a little pricey, but it does help the wig look a lot better. It doesn't show up as well in camera, but in pictures it shows up beautifully and it looks so good. Like I said earlier, I did use a different hairspray this time around than I did my first wig. And I believe that this one looks a lot closer to her on-screen color than the last one I had. It was more of a lilac. But now let's go ahead and add the finishing touches like her butterfly clip. I got this one off eBay. I'll have it linked below. But yeah, that's basically all I do for my Shinobu wig. I hope that wasn't too complicated and that I explained everything alright. But of course, if you have any questions, please let me know and I'll try to walk you through it. My last finishing touch is just going back and cutting off all the stray hairs that stick out. And with that, you have yourself a Shinobu wig. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed, please consider liking, sharing, subscribing, all that fun stuff. It really helps me out a bunch and I really appreciate it. If you're curious about my other social medias, I'll have them all listed down below so you can find me really easily. And if you have any questions, feel free to comment on the video or DM me on Instagram. Yeah, thank you guys so much again for watching. I really appreciate it and I'll see you guys all next time. Bye!